Riveting content. Empowering your life. Welcome to the Sphere. This episode is sponsored by Houston Housewives of Finance. For more information on increasing your cash flow, becoming your own money manager, and to schedule your complimentary personal finance strategy, contact the Houston Housewives of Finance today at 1-844-700-4463. Looking to advertise? Join the Sphere's vast demographic reach of thousands of people all over the world. Send an email today to advertise@thesphere.tv or call us at area code 832-772-7789. Elite Dental Wellness. At Elite Dental Wellness, Dr. Ashandra Batiste understands that one of the biggest obstacles is dental fear. The vision at Elite Dental Wellness is to ensure every patient is treated with respect, ultimate care, patience, and love. Call us today to make an appointment at area code 713-789-8680.
Welcome back to Injustice on the Sphere TV, where we discuss the laws of the land and how they affect you, the people. I'm your host, Brennan Dunn. You can reach me on Twitter at LegalMind. That's mine with a Y, because there's always a question to be asked and answered. Joined and ecstatically joined by the wonderful and vivacious Alicia Ford. How are you, Alicia?
Hi, Brennan. No, I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you doing today? Welcome back, everybody, to Injustice on the Sphere TV. I am your co-host, Alicia Ford. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ali on Sphere. So, Brennan, what's going on?
Well, we're gonna dive into some things that deal specifically with womankind and men trying to regulate how that works.
As usual.
The ACLU has filed a lawsuit against the FDA, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, over restrictions on the abortion pill, more specifically a pill for Mifeprex. It's a prescription drug that the FDA has restricted in not allowing individuals with those prescriptions to obtain it from a retail pharmacy. Instead, you have to get Mifeprex through either a clinic, medical office, or hospital under the supervision of a healthcare provider who has registered the drug with the drug manufacturer. People are saying that this is a severe restriction on their ability to get the drugs. You got to think about the people in rural towns where they would have to actually drive maybe a county or two over to find an appropriate place to get this particular type of drug. And people are saying, well, look, it's a restriction on my right to have this drug. And moreover, if I've already been given a prescription for it, why should I then have to go through hoops and everything else to have to get it? And the argument is that, well, it's part of a certain category of drugs that has certain restrictions on it. It's under this risk evaluation mitigation thing that the FDA has put up, saying that there are certain drugs that are so inherently toxic and potentially harmful that they need to be overly adjudicated or dispensed.
Regulated.
And so, you know,
I mean, I can't really say that I am like against what this is about. I mean,
really?
Especially if the FDA's argument is that there are other abortion drugs that are not regulated to this extent. That means that it's probably something about this drug that you need the type of supervision that they're warranting. So, I mean, because when you think about it, and it's not even an abortion pill, but when you think about it, Plan B, you buy that at the grocery store, right? You afraid that you may have had unprotected sex with your partner the night before. It prevents a pregnancy. I mean, that's something that anybody can go to Kroger, Walmart, CVS, wherever has a pharmacy and buy that. it's when it's saying that there's an inherent toxicity or potential harmfulness, I think the argument is lost when they're saying, well, it doesn't stop the harm from the people that have been prescribed. You're right, it doesn't. But for some reason, this drug has been prescribed to those people. And if it has been prescribed to those people, then they are requiring that they are under this supervision because of the effects of the drug. And so, I mean, I really can't say like, oh, this is a restriction when there are other options, and that if this is the option that the doctor chose, then there must be a reason why they didn't choose the ones that are less regulated. And they need to make sure that whomever is dispensing the drug is able to properly monitor the patient taking it. I can't really fault you for that.
I gotta say, Alicia, I'm actually surprised that we have a disagreement on this issue, and more so that the disagreement isn't flipped in terms of who's pro and who's con on this particular argument. I personally believe that, and I listened to everything that you said, that the ACLU was right in this fight against the FDA. For one, you've got the fact that this is a prescription drug, which means that for a doctor to have prescribed it to you, they must already know the risks, the inherent nature of the drug, and you and your body. So for them to say, you know what, it's going to be okay for you to take this drug, lets me know that the doctor has done their due diligence and finds that this particular drug is safe enough for you to take it. Now, this particular drug stops pregnancy up to 10 weeks. And it's been noted that there are several other prescription drugs which aren't under these same requirements. And quite honestly, if a drug is so dangerous that even a doctor's prescription isn't enough for you, maybe the drug just shouldn't be available at all. And when I say that, it's I don't see how going to the clinic to get the drug and them handing it, putting it in your hand and you walking away is any different than going to a retail pharmacy. If you're going to mismanage the drug, you're going to mismanage the drug. I just don't see the difference.
I do kind of see the difference, because if you're going to mismanage the drug, then your access to the person that provided it, and the access to the person that prescribed it, and the access to the person who has the knowledge to rectify the situation that you may be going through is easier to access, because that's the only place you can get it from. So unless you're for some reason because as you said, if this doctor is prescribing you that drug, one, there's a reason why. There's a reason why they're going to give you something with this toxicity. And all they're saying is, in protection, we want to make sure that if this drug is given, that whomever is giving it, they have the right to fulfill it there, because there must be specific requirements.
But what are they going to do other than what a retail pharmacist? You hand them your prescription, they give you the drugs tell you what to take, what dosage to take.
There has to, because as much as we love retail pharmacies like we all do, 9 times out of 10 you can opt out of the dosage, or out of the what is it that they give you, the recommendation, the drug, like, hey, you've gotten this drug, and
I don't know if that's I quite honestly don't know if that's a true statement.
No, I've had to fill prescriptions and they were like, do you want counseling? No. And that's it. Then I got my prescription. So that in the hands of a drug where they're saying like this is not something that they're willing to chance. I'm okay with that. If I can sit there and tell you, no, I'm opting out of my prescription counseling with a drug like this, I'm going to say that the doctor is going to be okay with it.
I've never taken an abortion pill before.
And I'm not saying it has to be an abortion pill. It just has to be a prescription drug.
This is specific
it's
to abortion. It's
still a prescription drug.
Because when you're talking about abortions, and we talk about the very nature of how abortion doctrine is regulated, we've seen time and time again where they've made specific restrictions on how to conduct an abortion, which puts you in the same position as getting this pill by saying, well, you if you're going to go to one, it has to be at a hospital to get it done, where they tried to regulate it. And the whole overarching argument there was the same one here, where you're making it difficult for people to get these abortions, which to me goes to the very heart of the legislation to prevent abortions from happening.
I don't see how it is preventing an abortion when it's saying that there are suitably reasonable alternatives. So that lets me know that you are in a special category of people where that suitably reasonable alternative is not an option. 2, that means that this pill is so dangerous to you and harmful that it needs to be given under the supervision of a doctor. Of a doctor who dispenses it out of his office so he can adequately counsel you on the way to take the pill and on the effects and what to do. I would totally agree with you if there were no other options. If they were like, this is the only abortion pill we have and you got to make sure. No, if there's a suitable and reasonable course, then I can't say that I'm going to sit there and be like, well, FDA, you're wrong. You should just make it available to whoever want to get it from a pharmacy. And there are potential side effects to it that go beyond what a pharmacy should or should not be doing or dispensing in that case for this drug. So, I mean, I'm going to have to agree to disagree with you on this one.
Fair enough. And ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, comments, concerns specifically about this, please share them on Facebook Live right now. I just want to let you guys know that on Facebook Live, we ask that you subscribe to our show on all the major platforms, including iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, and Stitcher. Review our show on iTunes and with constructive feedback, and share this Facebook Live post and the entire show with your friends and family. And make sure you donate those coins to us at www.thesphere.tv/donate. And as we're talking about this particular abortion issue, we're going to piggyback it and talk about the fact that the United States House of Representatives recently voted 237 to 189 to approve an abortion bill that would criminalize the medical procedure if it was performed after the 20-week viability mark, essentially saying that
so about halfway
that
through.
After 20 weeks or older, the abortion shall not be performed or attempted if the probable post-fertilization age as determined is 20 weeks or greater, making it a criminal act to have a physician conduct it. I ask you again, as the lady of the house, one, should we be restricting the time frame in which a abortion should be done? Two, is there anything that you see wrong with saying, hey, if a medical provider does it, they should be criminalized?
Yes, this is where I'm just like, this is where I'm going to go and be on my whole, I don't get what you guys are doing here again. Because to me, this is a totally different thing. You're saying that you're criminalizing a medical professional who performs an abortion after 20 weeks, except in certain instances. And then even in those certain instances in which that medical provider does perform that abortion, they have to have a neonatal doctor specializing in resuscitation of a child on hand if you're performing, and they can only perform that abortion in that limited exception with the ability or thought that the child will be able to survive. Like, that's way too many restrictions on something as fluid as whether or not or how this situation is going to go from one person to the next. So what if I truly believed that, you know what, hey, you know, this child could survive and they didn't? Or I just think that's too much of a gray line. I think, again, I'm going to go back, and when I write my book, I'll dedicate the first page to you, and it will be called Uterine Envy. And then when I write Uterine Envy, I will definitely keep referencing these examples of why men will not jump out of our uteruses and leave us alone. It is a form of control. Control yourself. It's like that. It is like that politician who is pro-life but asked his mistress to get an abortion.
You know, it's interesting that you boil it down to the base of simply uterine envy.
It is.
And why can't, on the counter, it be about the protection of human life? Because the question then becomes for me, and I'm going to say this first, that inherently I am a pro-life person. Mm-hmm. I believe that as soon as from conception that this is a life, and that after you start aborting it, you're taking a life.
Okay.
So, but I say that, and then I follow that up with, I am always actually going to be pro-choice when it comes to a political view, because the overarching danger to a mother who doesn't want a child, who then has to go onto the black market and then scrape this child out of her body, is more important to me than I'd rather save one life than kill two. And so politically, I am pro-choice. Personally, I am pro-life. Now, to say that when you're talking about these good old boys who are, as you say, dictating your body, I think, and I'm not going to speak for them in totality, but from a personal view, I think that it actually, when I think of abortion and the regulation of abortion, I think it's more so for the protection of the child. Now, arguably, some others would say it's actually more so because of religious beliefs. And I think of it more of a biological belief system about when a life starts. But I don't see why it can't be about protecting what we might believe to be a human life and not necessarily about this woman. In all aspects of pregnancy, I think that the only time a woman where I would
should
personally
have the right to decide what to do with her body.
Not even a right to decide what to do with her body, but in all aspects, when there's a rape involved, I think that a woman hasn't put herself in that position. But when you're talking about two consenting, hold on, I'll let you talk. When you're talking about two consenting adults who then have a oopsie or a mistake, that's not that unborn child's fault for what they did. I don't know why they're putting 20 weeks as the arbiter of all things good and bad about abortion. I don't know if they believe that at 20 weeks, all of a sudden this little ball of nuclei can think and talk or not talk, but you know what I'm saying, has now manifested itself as humanity. But I guess that's the only unclear part about this is when we decide a human should be considered a human.
So the label of the bill is the Pain Capable Unborn Child Protection Act. And I hear you. You're allowed to have. I'm pro-choice all the way because even as a Christian myself, I am pro-choice down to the end because I'm not going to judge you. That's not my place. I am not your maker or creator. But I would like people to stop thinking that the average woman uses abortion like a condom, like as if, oh, okay, you know what? I'm going to have unprotected sex. And if I get pregnant, I'll just have an abortion. Oh, okay, I'm going to have unprotected sex with him on Tuesday. And if I get pregnant, I'm just going to, I'm just going to abort the baby. I'm going to say now there may be a small, minuscule sect of society that does believe this. But I cannot say that at 20 weeks, that's how I was going to say, Lord, I was going to make a woman pregnant for as long as an elephant. But but I feel like, a pregnancy lasts 40 weeks. Halfway through, you're at 20 weeks. I would think that the average woman having to abort at 20 weeks, which is halfway through that pregnancy, is making some crucial decisions for some crucial reasons. And that for you to criminalize the doctor who performs this abortion based on limited exceptions that you deem worthy, that you deem is the only reason why she should be having an abortion at this date is ridiculous. I mean, because when we think about it, if somebody doesn't want to have a baby, they're having an abortion way earlier. They're having an abortion when you ain't even thinking about it. They're having an abortion when you didn't even know that they were pregnant.
Do you think that, because let's talk about some of the reasons why one might want an abortion. I personally think that one of the top reasons is financial, saying, you know what, I can't afford to have a kid right now, so let me not do this. Another would be the fact that they feel like they're in it by themselves, saying that I don't have the support system to do it. Another reason might be because they simply want to live life and saying, you know what, now is not the right time for me to have a kid because it limits and restricts my freedom of movement. And I think, and you have a point about that time frame of that 20 weeks halfway through, saying, well, what overarching reason might there be other than those three, what I would consider to be the top three reasons why one might not want to have a child, i.e. some kind of medical issue with the child or with yourself as the mother. And I don't know if this bill takes that into consideration or not. And it kind of does when it says, it actually does when it says that for an exceptional reason, i.e. the health of the parent or for the health of the parent. So I hear what you're saying about, this altruistic belief that there has to be some god awful reason why a mother at halfway through would not want their child. But I don't know if that decision is really that altruistic.
Well, here's my thing about it. I am not in the mind of a 20-week pregnant woman. I will have no idea what it's like to be pregnant. I'm 30 something, and I literally have the thought in my mind that, you know what, I'm grown. I have the ability to support a child. I have one, if that were to happen to me, I'd still want to jump off this table 10 times because I'm not ready for a child. But at the same time, I am not in the position to judge a woman and sit there and say, you know what? At 20 weeks, the only reason you're doing it is for a selfish reason, because I can't facially determine what you could be wanting an abortion for at 20 weeks. It's none of my goddamn business why you need an abortion at 20 weeks. That's why HIPAA is here. It's your business why you need an abortion at 20 weeks. It's your business why you need to do
Alicia,
this at 20
at what
weeks.
point then do we start protecting this unborn child? I mean, real honest question, because no one ever wants to actually discuss the child. They always talk about mom's rights. Like, we even talk about, as a guy, I talk about what the right of the other half of that parentage is about. But at what point do we actually talk about the right of this unborn child, and when do we have that unborn child manifest itself into having a human right?
I'm having a problem with you criminalizing people performing this abortion at a certain stage. I'm having a problem with you criminalizing a doctor for performing an abortion at 20 weeks. I mean,
if you're going to criminalize anybody, who would you criminalize?
I mean, I'm not going to criminalize either party, because when I think about it, when we think about it, very few people, you say at what point is it an abortion? I'm sorry.
I didn't say at what point it is an abortion. I said at what point do we start protecting the life of this unborn child? At what point
do you start protecting the life of a certain child? After a certain time, you're no longer having an abortion, but you're having a birth. At some point, you reach the line of no longer having an abortion to actually birthing out a child.
That's not a real answer. So basically, at delivery is what you're saying.
No,
that's not a real answer.
I'm saying that there is a certain point. I'm sure 20 weeks, or I don't know when, but
that's my only issue. But because at some point, when a human is a human.
I'm not saying that it's not a human at that time. I'm saying that at some point where you're like, well, when does it happen? I know if you have an abortion, probably at 30 weeks, you just gave birth. Like you no longer had an abortion, you gave birth, because that child is probably going to come out living, and that's no longer an abortion. That's just a birth.
Well, in 20 weeks, there have been documented cases of a child surviving an early term pregnancy, a premature pregnancy at 20 weeks. So this is problematic.
It's gray lining. It's a gray line that I don't think that we're ever going to agree with on society. I mean, especially me, when I don't want anybody running my body, because I don't know what if I ever had to get an abortion at 20 weeks, I wouldn't want somebody to tell me that I can't do it. Like, if for whatever reason, and I'm sure it's not.
Well, you don't want anybody telling you not to have an abortion in 5 weeks.
I'm sure, but you show the hell right.
So let's not make this about the number.
But even at 20 weeks, I'm sure my decision isn't, you know what? I realized that I can't take care of a baby. Like, you knew that when you got pregnant. You knew that at 3 weeks. You knew that at 5 weeks. You knew that at 10 weeks. So at 20 weeks, you just didn't come to this non-altruistic
But to be fair,
that,
Alicia, we would be having the same argument if we were talking about this at 10 weeks, criminalizing it at 10 weeks. True or false?
We sure the heck would.
Exactly. So go ahead and say what you got to say.
I'm going to say that this portion of the show is sponsored by the Houston Housewives of Finance. Did you know that only 4 states in the United States offer financial education? 33%, or more than 77 million of Americans, don't pay their bills on time. 39% of Americans carry credit card debt from month to month, and 39% of adults say they don't have enough savings. Don't become one of these statistics. Let Houston Housewives of Finance advise you on increasing your cash flow and becoming your own money manager by scheduling your complimentary personal financial strategy. Contact Houston Housewives of Finance today at 1-844-700-4463 or email them at info@houstonhousewivesoffinance.com. Ask how you can participate in a complimentary financial literacy workshop near you. Houston Housewives of Finance are the new faces of the new age of financial services.
Now, as we move forward, we're going to talk about another, I guess, issue of human rights. The Trump administration is urging a U.S. appeals court in the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to decide to rule that the federal law does not ban discrimination against gay employees. The U.S. Department of Justice is supporting a New York skydiving company, Altitude Express, Inc., in a lawsuit brought by former instructor Donald Zarda, who accused the company of firing him after he told a customer he was gay and she complained. The case looks at the Title VII restrictions of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which bans discrimination based on workers' sex, race, religion, and other traits. The issue at hand is whether homosexuality should be covered under this Title VII disposition, saying that, well, because right now it's kind of this gray area of whether sexual orientation has anything to do with a worker's sex or religion or any of those other traits. The Trump administration says, hey, no, it has nothing to do with that, that a private entity should be allowed to make those kind of choices about their employees, and that it's not a covered constitutional discriminatory act.
It is.
The EEOC is going to appear on the behalf of Zarda's estate. Zarda died in a base jumping accident after filing this lawsuit, unfortunately. But this is an interesting case because when we talk about the rights of people when it comes on discrimination, we usually look at a class and say, first of all, saying are the actions that are concerning you, can they be extended to a class of people, or do they deal with you specifically? And in this particular instance, I think that the gay community would certainly be considered a class of people, those dealing with sexual orientation. And the second issue that you look at with constitutional issues is whether protecting that class does something to harm the rest of the population, essentially saying that, look, does it further an interest that is, one, an American interest, and one that should be protecting a class of American citizenry, and two, would protecting that particular class be harmful to the rest of the constituents of America? And in this particular instance, I don't think it does. I think that homosexuals should have the same rights to work and be free, because we have a right to the pursuit of monetary gain in this country. And I think that when you tell a person based on the fact that they are homosexual, you cannot be afforded that constitutional right to the pursuit of liberty and monetary gain
in life,
then you are in fact violating their other constitutional rights.
I think it just boils down to the sheer fact that at the end of the day, this country has it's going against its own principles of the fact that people should be allowed to be with whomever that they love, and you are basically discriminating against somebody for doing something that is desired by almost every single human in the world, which is to be in a relationship romantically with somebody that cares about them regardless. So, I mean, in essence, you're saying that your human desire to be in an affectionate, in a relationship with someone else that loves you back is wrong. And I don't see how that is at all right.
Well, to me, this goes back. I mean, you use the argument all the time, stay out my uterus. Stay out of people's bedrooms.
Yes.
Yeah, their bedroom has nothing to do with it. Who and how you screw somebody has no bearing on can you do your job effectively.
Well, they are now basically punishing somebody for being in love. That's in essence what you're doing. You are punishing somebody for loving another human being.
All because your personal religious beliefs are fronted by somebody else's
your compromisable
actions.
personal religious beliefs.
And quite honestly, if your religious belief isn't strong enough to be steadfast in the face of somebody else's actions, then maybe you're not as religiously sound as you think you are. That's just my opinion.
I mean, if we not look, I was about to upset like 15 trillion people, so I'm gonna keep my mouth closed. But All I'm going to say is that you're correct. You need to have conviction in every area. You need to condemn in every area of life.
Well, let
and
who is without sin cast the first stone.
Exactly.
It's a lot of people throwing some damn rocks that should be stoned to death right now. Now let's talk about Atlanta. Atlanta unanimously voted to decriminalize small amounts of marijuana in a 15-0 vote ordinance 17-0-1152 to make the possession of less than an ounce of marijuana a non-jailable offense that results in a fine of $75 without the possibility of incarceration. What's interesting in this is that Georgia is still a no marijuana state, but the city has taken matters into their own hands and said, you know what, we are not going to punish those who partake a little bit in the earth's greatest resource for them,
greenery,
right,
shrubbery,
and penalize them for it. And people might say, well, how can the state make something illegal but the city make it legal? So this headline is kind of misleading because it's not decriminalizing, making it a legal substance. What they're doing is you have the right as a city to decide how to punish said offense. So if they're going to say instead of, because it was punishable by up to $1,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail before. So what they've done is lessen the sentence that accompanies having that possession of marijuana for less than an ounce, saying that, look, $75 and then das vidanya.
Yeah.
You know, and to me, this is the right way to go, especially when, you know, I was just in Colorado the other day. And,
were you?
And I was. And I'm going to tell you, I was really, you know, we went into a group of friends. We went into one of those dispensaries. It was my first time being in one. Well, I don't smoke. I don't partake. I didn't buy anything in there. I chatted with the people. But I want to say this. As I walked in, I was really disgusted. And I was disgusted because behind the counter were all of these majority people that were happy-go-lucky, selling weed, making money hand over fist. I mean, they had all kinds of, do you want chewables? Do you want cookies? Do you want drinks? Do you want lotion? Do you want all these things that we make with this marijuana? And then you had these happy-go-lucky other majority patrons walking in to say, oh, sure, give me some of that. Give me some of that. And in my mind, it really enraged me because I'm like, you know how many people have felony records that look like me because of this same substance that you sit up here and have the audacity to have now commercialized, walk in free, make tinctures and drinks, and we have this wonderful weed lemonade for you. While there are people with criminal records that can't get jobs because it says something on their record about drugs. This very drug that you now have the luxury, because now that you've decided that you want to use it, we're going to make it a marketable product. And not only that, the same people that were once criminalizing it are the same people behind the counters, the ones making the 90% majority of the profit off of this particular substance that we were, lambasted about. And it really irked my soul. Saying that, I'm happy that Atlanta has decided to go ahead and make the
So
decriminalization,
now,
as it were, of marijuana.
Now, please, anybody in Atlanta, Georgia, do not, and I mean do not think that smoking weed is legal. That is not what this says.
That is not.
That is not what this says. This is not Denver, Colorado. You cannot go in there and be like, well, officer, I was just smoking. No. It just means that the punishment for possessing a certain amount of that prohibited substance is now lessened. It's still a crime. Yeah. So don't go out there catching misdemeanors for no reason.
You know what would make me happy? I guess assuage a little bit of the angry black man in me is if they went back and retroactively pardoned all of the people with these criminal records, specifically dealing with marijuana.
I mean, you know what? That would be right. But that's not going to happen.
Well, no,
and we
because-
know that. I mean, because in essence, it's the same thing. We're just going through our own prohibition era. In the next, 40, 50, 60 years, weed'll probably be legal in all of the states. There'll be dispensaries on every corner. And we'll be talking about this in history books as the time when weed was no longer legal, but the government decided. And they'll be analyzing, historians will be analyzing what happened at this time. That's just how it works. That's the history of life. It just I wish I could say, but it takes society changing, because it takes society demanding something different for change to happen, and we know they don't go back and decriminal or retroactively apply anything.
Well, not until it suits
The right person.
the needs of those who have the power to make the systemic change. But we'll talk about that on another show on another day. This portion of the show is sponsored by The Sphere. Are you starting your business and looking for a place to advertise? Do you have a need to reach out to thousands of people across the world to build your brand or sell your product? If so, get your product placement and advertising needs handled right here at The Sphere. We offer a wide variety of content delivery platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Stitcher. Plus, we have a vast demographic reach within the United States as well as modern countries across the globe. Our enriched content and inspiring dialogue, coupled with your strategic ad, is surely to hit the mark every time. Call us today at area code 832-772-7789 or send an email over to advertise@thesphere.tv. Now, moving in the same vein as this criminalization issue, a federal judge in Chicago has refused to dismiss a lawsuit that contends that Mugshots.com deliberately fails to update or correct outdated records to create incentives for arrestees to pay to get their photos removed through an affiliated website. These are people who have gone through the criminal justice system. Mugshots.com has put up their pictures with their records, their all of their criminal record history. One woman said that hey, look, you still have outdated information. I no longer my record, I'm no longer an active. I'm no longer an active felon.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get a job, but I can't get a job. Matter of fact, I lost my job because my mugshot was still on here as if it was a current issue going on. And they told her, hey, we'll go ahead and remove it if you pay $2,000 plus a representation fee. And to remove the entire profile would have been $15,000 plus a representation fee. Now you're telling me these people, without your permission, put up your information.
It is public information.
It is public information, but and then never updated that information. They don't
purposefully,
and then tell you, hey, you want us to take it down? You got to pay what you owe, player. Pay what you owe. Now, I have a problem with this. One, because it exploits those who are in a very vulnerable
paid
position.
their debt to society.
I mean, you're vulnerable. Everybody
Yeah.
knows that if you're a felon in this country, you have the cards stacked against you. The deck is stacked against you. It's hard to get a job as it is. All I have to do is go do a couple of quick strokes, and then go look. But now you're telling me, not only will you won't even give me the courtesy of being current with my information. Like, it's disrespectful and it's predatory. In a sense, this is the same type of issue where
it's exploiting a class of people that are, as you said, are already at a disadvantage. When we're thinking about people who have and are still going through the criminal justice system, we would like to think that, we understand that you've committed a crime and that's what happens. And, your mugshot goes up there. That's fine. I think, the problem that's created here is that they're requesting compensation for the removal of said criminal profile, when that's not what, and their premise is that this is our freedom of expression and our freedom of speech. But the court is saying, no, it's not, because the fact of the matter is you are predicating this freedom of expression upon the payment of people in order to remove or to do something with your freedom of expression. Well, which they're saying is, the court is saying, no, you can't do that, player. That's not how this works.
Well, what's interesting to me is that this highlights to me an issue within the country that we have as we look at people who have committed crimes, felons. we already know that the recidivism rate for people who have committed felons is extremely high. People go back
because of the lack of opportunity.
Because of the lack of opportunity, because they can't get jobs. Well, you want me to be a better person in this world, but I can't go get a job. So I was already poor to begin with, which is why I went out here and robbed this bank or robbed whomever.
I was already poor due to a lack of opportunities probably presented
which
to
is
me
not an
based on my
excuse that's a
socioeconomic
good
status.
excuse. However, it is an excuse that can be made. It is an argument that can be made.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you tell these people, go pay your due for what you did wrong, and you go be a better person than when you got out, than when you came in. But how can I be a better person when the deck is stacked against me? And not only that, but you won't even. You got shit like this going on.
You have these deplorables, to quote Hillary Clinton, that are sitting here putting this nonsense up, and basically, you know what I'm saying? It is hard at this point. If you're a felon, look, your best bet is to become an entrepreneur. And even still, that's not that easy because you need a loan. But it's just that it is so disgusting that somebody would sit there and say, okay, you want your mugshot? You want your picture taken down? That's $2,000. You want the entire profile taken down? That's $15,000. Even and the man, one of the plaintiffs, said he was wrongly arrested because the police thought he was somebody else. So I mean, what are you supposed to do then? I'm supposed to pay you $15,000 based on a mistake of the state? Absolutely not.
That's the way it is. I mean, it's bad business is what I think it is.
It is a bad business model.
Business. And I think that it's going to be interesting to find out what the court does with this particular.
They're not going to let this go.
We'll see.
I hope
we'll
not.
See. Here's something else that's going to be really interesting to find out about. The Supreme Court is going to consider a constitutional issue. And the question presented to the court is, can a lawyer concede guilt over a client's objection? And this case stems out of a Louisiana death row inmate who, in the case of, his name is Robert Leroy McCoy. And that's such a Negro name.
Stop.
Leroy. Leroy is.
Just let the man be.
But anyway.
Let the man be.
I wish it was like Thurston. But anyway, in this particular case, Mr. McCoy was sentenced to death back in January 2012 for the May 2008 murders of the son, mother, and stepfather of his estranged wife. McCoy's parents hired Larry English to represent McCoy, paying him $5,000 to take the case. McCoy refused his lawyer's suggestions to accept a plea deal. The attorney said, hey, look, you're looking at death row on this, so what I'm going to do is try to give you a plea deal. McCoy says, look, this wasn't me who did this killing, even though the Louisiana Supreme Court, in reviewing the case, said there seemed to be an overarching amount of evidence to suggest his guilt. Now, what happened was, when the trial started, the attorney told the jury, he conceded, saying, hey, look, we all know this guy is guilty. The defendant, Mr. McCoy, then objects, saying, that's not what I want you to say. I want you to fight for me. The attorney's argument is that it was in his firm belief, in his professional opinion, that because this case was so stacked against Mr. McCoy, that this was a case of what's called mitigation, saying that we were trying to make sure that he didn't get the death penalty. I was trying to stop this jury from killing my client. And the only way I felt that could happen is if we conceded his guilt and basically threw ourselves at the mercy of this jury. The Louisiana Supreme Court sided with the attorney. And so the question then becomes, can the attorney override their client's objections if they feel it's in their best interest to do? At one point, I think 2 days before the trial, Mr. McCoy had asked the court to
they don't let you out of trials like that 2 days before. They want that to go.
To dispense with his attorney. And then the day of trial, he also asked if he could represent himself. In both accounts, the court said no, and they proceeded on. This is a really tough one for me, and I think you got something that you need to say make some coins real quick. So let's get that out the way first before we actually jump into this.
Sure. This will let you know that this portion of the show is sponsored by Elite Dental Wellness. At Elite Dental Wellness, our vision is to create a welcoming practice that will offer exceptional dental care and a lifetime of dental wellness. We are committed to the finest possible oral care and overall health and well-being of our patients. Elite Dental Wellness is built upon the foundation of integrity, expertise, and service. Through our commitment to modern dentistry, continuing education, and friendly atmosphere, we strive to make our patients feel that they are part of our family. Dentistry can be scary, daunting, and uncomfortable. Dr. Batiste and her team work tirelessly to ensure your comfort. Make your appointment today with Dr. Chandra Batiste at Elite Dental Wellness today. Call them at 713-789-8680.
Now, as a practicing attorney, and I do a lot in criminal defense, I've always been taught and told that I work for my client. I do what my client wants me to do. Now, one thing I can't do is I can't knowingly put my client on the stand if I know he's about to lie. If I do, then I had to go tell somebody, look, I can no longer represent him or let him speak because he has that right to go up and say whatever he wants to, but I can't be a party to it. I also have the right during trial strategy to decide what goes on during the trial strategy. So the client may say, well, I want a trial. I don't want a trial. Once you tell me I want a trial, I have the right to decide how that trial strategy is going to go along. So the question then becomes, in this particular case, was conceding guilt, because to me, guilt and innocence is what you go to trial for.
That's what I was like. You're basically taking away.
Now,
the man has basically said, because we're at trial, he said, I'm not guilty. So you then eliminate any burden from the state to prove their case by conceding it in the opening arguments.
Now, and to be fair, there are plenty of times when someone who goes to trial because the plea deal on the table is something so out of bounds for what they would like that they say, you know what, let me go ahead and take my chances with a jury. Even if I am guilty, maybe the jury is going to be a little bit softer on this.
I don't think we'd be here if that were the case.
Well, he's still on death row, which means that it didn't work for him.
Yeah. Well, no. I'm just saying that regardless of anyone else's perception of his guilt or innocence, he has the right constitutionally to assert his innocence. And you as an attorney should not then usurp that right immediately to say, hey, look, you know what? Hey, guys. Hey, jury. we know that he did it. He's a little crazy.
But to play devil's advocate, what about the fact that you swear this oath to be a zealous advocate for your client? And if he felt like this is literally the only way I believe, in my professional opinion, to save my client's life, would he not be doing, and this is an ethical dilemma, would he not be doing the more ethical thing to try? Because sometimes your clients want you to do shit that you just know that's stupid. Shut the fuck up. Let me do my job. Is this one of those cases? I mean, because sometimes I've told my client, I'm not doing that. Let me do what I need to do.
There is still a different way. I mean, there's more than one. What is it? There's more than one way to skin a cat.
That's correct.
And so I'm just saying, you could have set your trial strategy up in such a way that still accomplished the same thing that you wanted to.
But what you could have done and what you did are two different things, because he could have done any number. He chose one path. So is that one path out of the multitude that he could have chosen the wrong one? Because
yes.
I don't know. This is a hard one for me. My gut tells me yes, but my mind tells but the logic says that if he felt like he was doing the right thing, then I don't know if you can fault the attorney.
There's a difference between saying, as part of my trial strategy, I'm not going to put up a witness you really want me to put up. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a difference between that and saying, this man, we know he's guilty. Like that, this is trial strategy. I don't believe that this is trial strategy. This is saying, you know what? I really believe we need to put them on the stand. And you, in your best knowledge as an attorney and being a zealous advocate, say, you know how this could play out because you've seen it many times before. And in your best judgment, say, I'm not putting that witness on the stand. That is a difference.
What's the difference when you're talking about in your best judgment based on the years of experience that you have?
In my best judgment based on the years of experience, I am not going to go against my client's constitutional right to maintain his innocence. Regardless of how I feel, I am not going to go against his constitutional right to maintain his innocence and make the state prove its burden, regardless of the outcome. Because me as an attorney, I will tell you every single day, every 20 minutes, look, this is what's going to happen when this jury does this. Are you comfortable? And if you keep telling me yes, and I keep asking you, and I go talk to your family, and we have a powwow afterwards, and we all go and have a come to Jesus about the fact that you're going to jail, I've done my job. I can't say that.
I hear how passionate you sound right now, but at the same time, I don't know if when you're talking about, because this is like surgery with a doctor and a patient, you know, there are certain things that the patient wants you to do, but at the end of the day, the doctors it's out of your hands. You have given it up to God, and now the God of the moment is doing what they need to do for you. In the same way with this particular instance, you have given me the ability to protect you. I am the last protection that you have, and if what I feel is that the
This
only
is a slippery slope.
I know it is, but if the only protection that I can give you is to tell this jury, look, jury, because if I can already see how this is going to play out, you're telling me that because the argument they were going to make, and maybe let's make that clear, the argument that they were going to make is that McCoy was going to testify that he believed that law enforcement was responsible for the murders and had framed him. Obviously, this attorney felt like that particular theory of defense was going to be a complete waste, or else he would have at least tried to parlay that particular theory into a jury's listening ear. If you feel like that case is going to go nowhere, and you believe that whatever's being done is in the best interest of your client, then I think you also have a duty to do what's in the best interest of your client, regardless of what this client wants to do, because there's this thing called the best interest of your client. As an attorney, you are an advocate for your client.
I'm an attorney, so I understand everything that you're
Well,
saying.
I'm
and what
saying
I'm
it for you,
telling
and
to
I'm saying for the
but
people out
I'm
here.
just saying, this is how I look at it. You're now opening a door. You are opening a door to a lack of zealous advocacy, because we already know that we
to
sometimes
a lack of zealous
yes,
advocacy.
And this is what this is. No, and I'm not saying in every case, but if we make it easier for somebody to concede someone else's guilt, because you're making the presumption that every attorney,
This is funny.
no, you're making the presumption that every attorney is cut from your cloth. And just like there are good doctors, there are not great attorneys. Just like it's the same thing. And I believe that you were opening a door to allowing people to make decisions that should not be made. My point is zealous advocacy. My point is not placing this judgment in basically sentencing you before the trial.
So I'm gonna throw something back at you that you used earlier today when you talked about that 20-week pregnancy.
How do we commingle these?
Because you were so fervent in this objection, saying that, you know, if at 20 weeks I'm going to decide to have an abortion, there has got to be some god awful reason why I would have it is in the vast minority that I would have this abortion for anything other than some kind of grave and serious reason. Conversely, if a lawyer is going to decide,
I don't like it.
If a lawyer is going to decide,
I don't like it,
that it is in the client's best interest to tell a jury at the forefront, my client is guilty, let's talk about mitigation. It is beyond belief that at that point that a lawyer with his profession on the line would do anything but what's in the best interest of his client.
Or what?
No, I'm just using your argument.
I mean, you sounded like a preacher, and this is
this
choir
in the pulpit.
This choir done went home. Like, so you preach to the
well, y'all
people.
couldn't sing anyway.
That's fine.
Well, it is what
we
it
didn't
is.
want to hear your lackluster sermon. So what I'm saying
y'all are
is,
off key and flat.
and just I'm tired of telling me to hold on. And what I'm going to ask you to do is say this: we're going to have to agree to disagree on this topic. That's all I'm going to say.
I can agree to that.
That we will have to agree to disagree
And again,
see
I
what
don't
the
think
Supreme Court says.
Well, yeah, and again,
And
I don't think
believe
that they're wrong.
We should make a friendly wager of $5 on this show.
Well, the problem
to
is,
see
I
that
told
it
you
will
from the
go in my
beginning.
way.
Well, the problem is, I told you from the beginning, I'm on the fence on this one. But for me,
Okay.
it's interesting. I'm willing to lose $5, just $5. It's $5.
Please put a split screen up so we can shake on this.
Let me.
We about to make $5 on this, and we gonna sit down. Might be a late $5 because we know it's gonna take a while to get
Well, with
through.
inflation, you're gonna owe me 7. But it is what it is, and at this point, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you've enjoyed the show.
Yes.
That's our time on Injustice on the Sphere TV. I'm your host, Brennan Dunn. You can reach me on Twitter at LegalMind. That's mine with a Y because there's always a question to be asked and answered. Alicia.
And my name is Alicia Ford. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ellie on Sphere.
Ladies and gentlemen, have a great day. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.